Well, good morning to this Safari Live here at Djuma Private Game Reserve, and which is a bit atypical, it's actually being hosted by me today. I'm Stefan Winterboer, and we're having a fantastic morning, sharing it with with this young bull elephant who's decided to come and drink at the Djuma waterhole. There's a lot happening this morning actually. It's not the warmest day, it's about 61 degrees Fahrenheit. I am not wearing a jersey, but I thought I should have brought one with. And we've got these bands of clouds coming through. You can have a look, scudding across the sky, moving quite fast are these herringbone clouds, which I don't know what that means actually. I don't know if it means that we're going to be getting something. This time of the year things are so dynamic. Hot days build up to thunderclouds. We have a bunch of stuff coming in from the Mozambican Channel. Things are different over here during these transition times between one season and another as these pressure systems move across the continent. We have Tara in final control and joined by Jerry for the first time out of Johannesburg. So I just want to say hello to Jerry. A big shout out to her and good luck for what she's doing today. Now this elephant, he's been drinking literally for about 10 minutes. And he hasn't stopped drinking for about 10 minutes. We arrived here 10-12 minutes ago, and he's been sucking up trunkfuls of water from the pipe that comes out of the ground over there. This is a pumped waterhole. And elephants are renowned for drinking water as fresh as what they can get it. And this is just no different. He's got his trunk straight over the end of the pipe, sucking up the water as it comes in. And I actually think that's why he's taken so long to drink. Usually they fill their trunk with water, and I don't think that there's that much water coming out of the pipe actually. A young bull like this, he's not very old. Even though he looks all grey and wrinkled, he's probably only between 15 and 20 years old. Will drink about 150 to 200 liters of water a day. So what is that in gallons? It's probably divided by about 5. So about 20, 25, maybe 30 gallons of water a day. Have a look at that beautiful light on his trunk. Wow. We've got Andrew on camera today. And I must congratulate you, Andrew. That is a beautiful shot. Well done. Going into his head, that's his ear. Ear opening, across his back. There, have a look at that wrinkled skin. As I said, they look old, these guys, but I think elephants are born looking old, to be quite honest. He's in very good condition considering the time of the year. And I say that because elephants don't really lose too much condition in the dry season because they can utilize so much food sources. But generally they do, you can see their hip bones sticking out a little bit. On his particular case, his hip bones are not sticking out a lot at all. And his spine is not sticking out there either. So he's in very good condition actually. Ears aren't too tatty, a little bit of raggedy edges there. Have a look at that ear opening. And by now, as you would have seen, the ear opening is in front of the ear, not behind it. Have a look at that. Blowing water into his mouth from his trunk. They hold about 6 liters of water in their trunk, so just over a gallon. And he's sucking it up using a chamber just in front of his eyes. And you can hear, I don't know if you can hear that. It's this slurping noise that he's making as he's sucking the water up and then blowing it into his mouth. And he's literally got all of his weight balanced on that front leg, that pole-like leg that you see over there. He's resting his other one. That's his other front leg. And elephants carry about 60% of their body weight. So 60% of the weight that they carry on their body is carried over their front legs. Hence those hence its pillar-like appearance, really, and this round front foot. It sort of distributes the weight quite evenly. They don't carry as much weight over their back legs, and because of it, their back foot is a bit smaller and also oval. It's not round. Can't really see it from this direction. Now what he's busy doing over there, I don't know what he's busy doing. He's busy playing. Being quite young, he's also going to be quite mischievous. And it's quite common for them to pull pipes out of the ground and pull electricity cables out of the ground, really just curious at anything foreign in the bush. You'll probably find in the little reservoir that he's created at the base of that pipe, there's some mud, and now he's giving us a bit of a head shake. He's finished drinking, it looks like. Wow, what a beautiful day. Now, this elephant was making a variety of what's what he's doing. I don't know, he hasn't quite finished playing with us at the moment. Arcadia Bear John wanted to know that just before we went live on the Djuma Dam cam, there seemed to be a rumbling sound. And the question is, was it the elephant or was it some lion that we were hearing? And you know, the answer to that question is twofold. Depending on when you were hearing or listening to the Djuma Dam cam, there were some lions roaring far in the distance. But he was also making some nice noises, some gurgling noises. Let's follow him a little bit. I'll show you what I mean by the reservoir and the pipe that they are using, just so that you can see where he was. That should explain why he was taking so long to drink. You can just see a small trickle of water that's coming out of that pipe. Now, it's quite common here for waterholes to be pumped. This area has no permanent water, and because of that, you need to pump the water to keep animals here, to keep game viewing good. That's how the Sabi Sands does its thing. And good for us, because it makes game viewing quite nice. What a pleasant sight. I have no doubt that being the age that he is going to probably move off and not stand his ground too much here as we come down. You'll see he's busy watching us out of the side of his head there. That's quite a common thing for elephants to do, is to walk and look from side to side. And I also have no doubt that he's actually on the way to the rest of the herd. An elephant bull like this would be on the periphery of herds, and he will go and rejoin them at the moment, wherever they are. Well, more than likely in the direction that he's walking, and I don't think he is old enough yet to be on his own. But definitely as he starts going into his periods of must throughout the year, he will gradually distance himself further and further from his natal herd, eventually separating from them completely. He's walking off into the bush, swinging his trunk. This time of the year they're feeding for roughly, I would say probably around about 20 hours a day. So he's not going to spend too much time drinking. He's going to move from water to feeding areas, which will probably just be in the bush that he's heading towards right now. And he'll begin eating within the next couple of minutes. Through the heat of the day, the absolute hottest time of the day, there you go, he's going to go and shove some branches in his mouth. He will spend it resting in the shade, but really just for, oh, there we go, leaves going in one end and coming out the other. All right. Now, the reason why I'm not following him is because while we were sitting watching that elephant, the vervet monkeys around Djuma camp were going crazy. They were giving an alarm call. It didn't sound like they were giving a particularly harsh alarm call or very scared alarm call, but it definitely was an alarm call, and we have to go and follow up on that, no matter how small it is or how short-lived it is. We have to follow up on alarm calls like that. We have got leopard in the area, we've got lion in the area, we've got wild dog in the area, and it could be any of those. It could also be some snakes, but to me it sounded like lion. Now, I don't speak vivid monkey, but generally speaking with leopard, there's a frenzy to an alarm call around a leopard that you just don't get with any other cat. Either way, we are going to go and have a look. Katie has asked a very good question in that why, if we do pump a small water hole like that, there's no water in Djuma Dam. Well, Katie, Djuma Dam sits actually in a drainage line, in the Mulwati drainage line, which by its very nature is quite porous. Whereas the dam, just the pumped dam, just on the fringes of it, is a small little man-made depression. It hasn't got any cement or anything. We didn't build it or anything like that. It's just a little depression that is slightly more waterproof and is also smaller, so it doesn't require as much water to be pumped. I don't think that the borehole would manage to pump the actual dam itself. It would just require too much water. So a smaller dam that's a little bit more controlled is much easier to manage and to keep at a level that animals can utilize it. And I mean, I've been watching that camera for the last couple of days, the Djuma Dam cam, and the amount of animals that come through that little pan is just incredible at this time of the year. There's just a never-ending procession of animals, from buffalo through to elephant and impala through to kudu and yana, zebra, wildebeest. Now I'm going through this thick bush over here relatively slowly. It didn't sound like the monkeys were calling in this direction. They were definitely calling. I'm just going to switch off here and actually just listen, because it sounds like they are still calling. No, they have stopped. The good thing is that we knew where they were calling from, and that's important. So something has disturbed these monkeys, something predatory has disturbed these monkeys around Djuma Camp. Just switched off again to listen again. There, the monkeys are still calling. Okay, that's good. Look in a little bit. So we have access to a road, a little road that goes around the camp, and we're going to be using that little road to go and see what has come down. There's no tracks on the road that I'm on at the moment. It's a very good camp this for leopard. Lots of thick bush around the camp. And having a look at the sightings data that we've had for the last year, lots of leopard are found around this camp. Quite tough to see. Monkeys will generally give away the position, although my general impression of monkeys around this particular camp is that they will shout for nearly everything. They've got a massive field of view with these huge trees that they've got, and they can see much further into the bush than what we can from the car and from this particular vantage point. So if it looks like my head is on a swivel at the moment, it absolutely is. it's because I'm trying to look into every direction that I can as quickly as I can. Scanning the quadrants, far, near, and close. Looking under the bushes, looking at every game path that I can. Got a nyala here, which is good. There's a nyala on this side. And the reason why I'm saying it's good is that I will place her in my memory of where she is. And if we hear her give an alarm call just now, it makes it a lot easier to try and pinpoint whatever's here. See, she's also listening. Alright, now we've got squirrels calling as well. Now, please keep a watchful eye on the Djuma Dam cam, because if something is moving down the riverbed towards the water, you'll definitely get to see it there first. So we've got a squirrel busy giving an alarm call. We've got the vervet monkeys that are finished calling at the moment, but have been calling nonetheless. Careful look in the trees, have a look on the sand. Now we're coming to this little riverbed, and it's going to be good to see if there's been any tracks coming in and out. Riverbeds are sort of like the highways out here. You have animals that love to move up and down these riverbeds. I can't see any tracks. Although we have got leopard tracks on the floor. They're definitely not. I'm going to be showing you where that leopard track is. So the leopard track is there. Doesn't look like much, but that is the track of a leopard. And it's walking towards Djuma Camp, walking towards the waterhole. Now, I have no doubt if it was still here that it would be, the monkeys would keep on calling. But at least it gives us a direction. Leopard tracks in sand like this, tough to judge their age. We're actually going to drive up here and go and have a look at the top of the road. And the reason for them to the reason for it to be difficult to judge age is the fact that the track's edges fall in, making it quite difficult to judge how fresh they are because you don't have that sharp edge, that knife edge on the outside of the track. So now what I'm looking is on the sand here. You'll see in front of us. The sand is a much better way of judging how fresh these tracks are. There's nothing here. Now this is exactly where I would have put those monkeys looking when we were sitting watching that elephant, which is on this game path. May has asked, do monkeys alarm call at different predators? Absolutely, Renee. I'd say that I could probably tell, and it's not every time. I mean, obviously you do get caught out, but you can tell whether monkeys are alarm calling at leopard. You can tell whether monkeys are alarm calling at lion or wild dog. There's just a subtle difference to the call. With leopard, it always seems to be in a massive frenzy. Leopard generally get a very robust reaction from most things in the bush, and they absolutely generate the most activity. Lion generates a bit of activity, but it always seems to be quite short-lived with lion, unless it's something big. Lion don't elicit such a massive response from these animals. So I'd say absolutely, they have their language. Just got to learn how to read it. So nothing at the Gowrie waterhole. Let's carry on down this road. I think what I'm going to do is then take the shortcut road and end up on Buffelshoek Cutline. Let's go and see what is crossed in from the Cutline. There were some lions seen there by James yesterday. Although the possibility is slim that they walk exactly the same path on consecutive days, it's not outside the realms of possibility. A lovely road to drive on a day like this because of the shadows. I quite like it. Very thick bushes you can see around us. And it's inside this bush that the hyena den has moved into. Brent, as far as I know, found the hyena den the other day, and it's on the side of the drainage line, one of these drainage lines. Where we're driving now, there are actually 3 drainage lines, or ravines, and it's almost impossible to get a vehicle in there. And so we're just going to have to wait for these hyena to move on before we get to see them again. And I must say that I'm missing the action around that hyena den. I'd love to see what's happened to that cub, that female that has always looked like she's been filled up by a compressed air bottle. What she's been getting up to. Right. And I see James, who is hosting the walk this morning, is wanting to say good morning. He's up and running, and he's going to go and give you an update. So we're going to leave you for a bit. We're going to carry on our search over here for whatever's around Gowrie Camp or Djuma Camp, and we'll be back with you in a bit.
Good morning, everybody. We find ourselves on foot here in the midst of the great wilderness that is the African dawn in the Kruger National Park. My name is James Hendry. Behind me is Brian. Well, he's actually in front of me physically, but he's behind the camera. Never mind. We're standing here. I'm speaking quietly because just to the south of us, I can hear 5 male lions roaring. Now, they are south of our little property called Djuma, but they're sitting there yelling their heads off, and I think that they're territorial marking. That's all that it is. I'm not sure that they're going to come further north, but I know that Steph is probably going to come down into this area just to see if they don't come across. There they go. Not sure if you can hear that. Okay, you're probably catching, if you've got really good speakers, you're probably catching very dim sounds of those amazing lions. They're just south of us. I don't think they're coming north. Maybe they are. That would be really exciting. But we're going to carry on just gently meandering through this beautiful bush and this incredible dawn light and just see what we can find as we go. And we'll keep listening to those lions. I think it's going to be a hot one today, so I don't think they're going to be awake for too much longer. Have a look down here. We have an amazing little spider. Can you see him there, Brian? He's actually in his web. Now, this is the beginnings, I believe, of a tropical tent web spider. A tropical tent web spider doesn't make an, there he is, you got him. A tropical tent web spider doesn't make an orb web like sort of the classic Charlotte's Web type of spider. And what happens is it's got these little knockdown threads, and you can see them shining in the dawn light here. These knockdown threads, what they do is when a little hapless bug flies through here, it hits one of these and falls off down. And then, when it gets caught, the spider will disappear, go and pick it out, obviously bite it, envenomate it, and then eat it there and go back to the little sort of central section here where he or she, probably a she given the size, will live. Amazing little spiders, and eventually they make pretty big tent webs. This is probably not it might not be the tropical tent web spider, but certainly a tent web spider of some kind. Beautiful the way the silk shines in dawn light, I always find. They're apparently slightly more primitive than the orb web spiders, and of course our most famous orb web spider out here is the golden orb web spider. And they come around in sort of January, probably December, in fact they'll start, when the rains really get going. And they're sort of the size of my hand, the big ones, and they're gold and yellow and orange and red and black and white, and they look absolutely terrifying. And you drive along and they're strung across the roads, and when you're driving off-road they're strung across the bushes. You drive through them and you can suddenly get a spider in your face. And if you're an arachnophobe, it's the most terrifying thing in the world. I'm not anymore, thankfully. But just listening for any alarm calls in case those lions do come north. I don't think they are. But they're totally harmless. They look like they would probably bite your head off, but they're completely harmless. Right, so we're going to move from here. Steph's got a beautiful bird to show you, and we'll see you just a little bit later. We'll watch out for the lions.
Not quite something predatory with teeth, claws and fur, but definitely just as pretty. This is a lilac-breasted roller you're having a look at. Oh, come on. Flew away just as well. There we go, it's actually landed on. Let me see if I can reverse a little bit. Hasn't landed too far away from us. After giving us a frontal shot and a side shot and a back shot, it's actually quite nice. But we come back to the dam, and I just have to say thank you very much for the updates on the hyena that arrived at the dam just as we left. So, Pretty Nightmare gave us that update that they were watching the dam cam and saw a hyena come up to the dam. Now, it may or may not be what the monkeys were calling it. Depending on how sneaky a hyena is being, it can actually elicit an alarm call from a vervet monkey. But we are still in the area following up. Have a look at how pretty this bird is. They are predatory birds. What this bird is doing is waiting for breakfast or hawking from a branch, looking for insects that are on the ground, predominantly grasshoppers, but I've seen them take almost anything. I even have records of them taking mice, small snakes, lizards. Just flew away, just going from one side of this tree to another, looking for anything that's on the grass. The lilac-breasted roller, one of the most pretty colored birds that we have out here. They're whole nesting species, so the male and female will search out a nesting cavity. She will lay a couple of eggs inside the hole in the nest, and then she will incubate them. Once the chicks are fledged, they leave the nest, and then that is then occupied by a different bird. Nests or holes for nests out here are hotly contested property, I must be honest. They are never left vacant for very long. I can't see where this hyena has gone, but what I do see is a zebra, which we're going to try and get to. So Ramey has asked if monkeys will alarm call at a hyena. Absolutely, Ramey. They don't always alarm call at a hyena, but depending on how sneaky the hyena is, depending on the type of bush that the hyena is walking through or slinking through, you may get an alarm call from a vervet monkey. Even we can get alarm calls from vervet monkeys if we act too sneakily. Anything out of the ordinary. Let's go and have a look. I've got some squirrels busy shouting here, so it doesn't mean too much. While we are here and having a look at what's going to come out of the bush, there's some zebra that are coming down to the pan to drink. There's definitely, I have the feeling that something is around here. We're not going to be going anywhere too soon. This looks like the center of attention this morning, and I want to know what's happening. Here we have a quintessential Birchall's or plains zebra of southern Africa. Equus burchellii, named after Burchell, which was, as far as I understand, a naturalist and explorer. He named a few things: the Burchell starling, the Burchell zebra, probably a few other things with Burchells that I can't really think of right now.
Kukul?
The Burchell's kukul. Now, zebra quite enjoy short grass. One of the reasons why they hang around with wildebeest quite often is that the wildebeest enjoy the tall grass, and the wildebeest will eat the top of the grass off, exposing the leaf blade closer to the ground, which the zebra then eagerly gobble up. The squawking of two excuse me two brown-headed parrots that Andrew was trying to get into frame over there. The zebra coming back. Excuse me, ambushing your microphone there with my sneeze. For those of you wearing headphones, must have been deafening. Wow, the light is beautiful this morning. Wow, Genevieve in New York, and I'd have to say good morning, Genevieve. You've come right out this morning and asked quite an interesting question, difficult question to answer. Do animals that are sick separate themselves, or the actual question is, do animals that are social separate themselves when they are sick so as to limit the spread of disease? Wow, Genevieve. In a way, I want to say yes, although I don't think that they do it consciously. I don't think it's a conscious effort. By nature, sick animals will be left behind by the herd. The needs of the herd far outweigh the needs of the individual, and just by default, you're going to find that sick animals are left on the fringes of the herd. They're not necessarily kicked out or in any way left out of any action, but you do find them moving to the fringes, and I'm saying that from a lion point of view all the way through to zebra and wildebeest and everything else that I've seen that is social. I think let's go in front of those zebra and go and have them. They're going to go for a drink at the dam. So that's a good question this morning, Genevieve. So nothing that you're really going to find any literature on. It's literally something that I have to sort of think about before answering. So when you're watching some sick animals, I think I'd like to make the point that when you're watching social animals and one is sick, it's quite common to find them on the outskirts, on the fringes of the herd. Whether they are doing it as a conscious effort to limit exposing healthy members of the herd to a disease, I'm not so sure. I don't think that they do that. But who knows, learning new things about animals all the time, and it's actually a good point. My gut feel is actually telling me that we're driving around in circles missing the cat or the predator that's around here. I've just got that little bubble, for lack of a better word. I don't know where these zebra are going. They're definitely not coming down to the pan to have a drink. As you can see, I stopped a little bit away from the actual dam. Zebra, unlike that elephant we were with a little bit earlier, they do care if you park too close to the water. They won't come and drink until there's some space. Always alert around water. This time of the year, it's not uncommon for lion to actually camp out around permanent water holes in an effort to ambush prey that come down to drink. It's quite common in actual fact. And the clever zebra are the ones that are wary. As you can see, this zebra has walked to the fringe of the water and is now sitting, taking its time. Waking up still. May in Chicago has asked if zebras can be tamed, and I have to say that yes, zebra can be tamed. There was a very famous mayor or governor of one of the towns in this country. I can't actually remember which one it is. Please forgive me, May. At the moment, I have these holes in my memory for whatever reason. And he actually tamed some zebra to pull his cart for him, to pull his official transport. The reason why they didn't work so well is that their hooves are actually too small to bear any extra weight and split quite readily. Even if you do shoe the zebra, their hooves are too small to carry any additional weight, and they didn't work very well. But it has been a common thing. People have been trying to tame zebra and to use them in all sorts of applications. I'm sure since European man set foot onto the African continent, and it is possible. Oh, why? We've got the zebra looking behind us, and that was where the squirrel was giving its alarm call from. We've still got these squirrels calling. Just feels like we are in the middle of it at the moment and just missing the point. Now, I'm scanning as much as what I can. I think if my head could be on a faster swivel today. Right, here the zebra have now made their way to the water. Cautiously and in quite a circuitous manner. That is lovely. And we'll come down now and drink. Very carefully. For those of you with the knowledge of how to do some screenshots, it's quite nice with the two zebra, his reflection giving him a kiss this morning. Not forgetting that this is a live and an interactive safari. You are welcome to send through any questions that you have. You've noticed that I've been answering a few questions from our long-time viewers, but you can use Twitter at the hashtag Safari Live, or you can email the address questions@wildearth.tv, and we'll try and answer questions that we can. That is lovely. Because we are in front of the Djuma Dam cam, those of you watching from the actual cam have noticed that there is a third passenger on the vehicle. It is actually Lou. Lou's been in final control, ensconced in a little office for weeks on end, and has asked if she could join us on Game Drive this morning. I couldn't say no. Sitting in that tiny little room watching and being meters in some case away from what is actually going on there is a torture, and to get out and about is actually a wonderful experience. That's why we're out here. Enjoy the bush. There, walking into the shot from the top right hand side, is a woolly necked stork, now going towards the zebra. And that's about as much water as a zebra needs for an entire day. They don't drink a lot, and their systems, even though they are not ruminants, which are actually much better at extracting water from what they eat and what they've got in their systems, they still don't need too much. Oh, look at that beautiful face on that zebra. That is just amazing. And James has got something to show you. I know that he's probably dying to show you what he's got. There's a dung beetle that he has. And we're going to hang around here. We're going to see you in a bit. Enjoy that.
How are we stabled in?
Look at that spectacular little creature that we've come across. A little dung beetle with a perfectly spherical little ball of dung. And these... You said we were off air? Right, sorry everybody, a bit of confusion in the air there. I think due to some one or two signal issues with this pack that we have. Never mind, there is the magnificent dung beetle that you can see there. And a little one, lots of different kinds of dung beetles, of course 900 different species of them. And what is so fascinating is that this little thing has come out, I think, after the rain. Now what I'm going to do, I know it's not ideal always to move these animals, but because he's close to fresh dung and is just moving along the road, I'm going to just twist a little bit and look at the size of the back legs. Can you see how astonishing those back legs are? Roll the dung with. I mean, it could well be a female. And some of them... Yeah, I don't think this is going to work. Sorry everybody, I think we're going to probably have to... Have you got me? Okay. The pack is a little bit of a problem, I'm afraid, so I'll stay down here with the dung beetle, and Brian will stay up top. Now, I don't know exactly the biology of this particular species of dung beetle. It is obviously a dung rolling type of beetle, and this dung will eventually be buried in the sand wherever it ends up, and there'll be an egg in the middle of it. I'm not sure if this one rolls that nuptial ball. A lot of the dung rolling species make a nuptial ball, and that basically means a honeymoon ball of dung that they then go and, well, they go and mate on, and after that she will make a new ball and go and bury it with the egg in it. And I'm not sure which this one is, but one of the dung rolling kind. But there will be others in this glorious ecosystem. That's, well, glorious is probably quite a strong description for what this is. This is, of course, a relatively fresh patch of buffalo patty, and you can see here, this sand here is from different kinds of dung beetles that have gone in, and they're now burying, they've dug holes underneath the dung, they use the moisture in the dung to soften the soil underneath, and they bury some of the dung underneath it, and they don't make the balls, so they don't roll away like that one is there. That one, I think, probably started rolling sometime yesterday, and as it got cold during the night, you'll find that its physiology or its metabolic rate probably dropped with the temperature, because they're exothermic, like reptiles are, I suppose, not like us. And so you'll probably find really struggling to move in the kind of cold here. Now, what I'm going to do is just see if we can't lift up a little bit here. Now, it's not quite at the right age. Once you get these patties at the perfect age, you can kind of flip them up, look at the amazing amount of activity that goes on underneath, and then bury, and then sort of fold them down again. We'll just try and open a little bit in here. Here we go. Come and have a look here, Brian. This is quite interesting. Can you see that little kind of golden grub? Now that, everybody, will be, it might be a pupating fly, but just for an idea, I often talk about the larval stage of a dung beetle, and I think a lot of that often probably a bit confusing. That's probably what a larva of a new dung beetle looks like. It's kind of a little grub, a white grubby type worm affair, the beetle equivalent of a caterpillar, and that's basically what it would look like. So some dung beetles will lay their eggs directly into the dung as opposed to burying it. 900 species, and I was expecting to see a few more after the rain we've had, and I think maybe as it heats up a bit there'll be quite a lot more insect life emerging from various crevices and holes in the ground and gaps in the bark and piles of dung. Right, the lions are still calling where we left them. Well, we didn't see them. They're just south of our boundary, and we thought maybe they might come a little bit closer, come up north, and we could send Steph down there, but they haven't. So I think that they are sitting there. But there is an interesting update. I don't know if you joined us yesterday, but if you didn't, we had a kind of slightly stressed-looking Salala pride in the morning with the 3 males and the 1 female. And then the reports of the Nkuhuma pride found yesterday on Buffelshoek as well. So they were both on Buffelshoek, which is a small property. And this morning, the Salala pride was seen running back west into Arathusa, probably south towards Londolozi. Looked like they've had a fight, and I think who they've probably fought with is the Nkuhuma pride. The Nkuhuma pride has probably finally started to come back into the area and assert itself and reclaim its kind of territory. So that's pretty good news. I think that's probably what happened, and I know that the guys are searching around Buffelshoek as we speak, trying to see if they can find the Nkuhuma pride. Now there's a batalier calling here in its tree, and we know there's a nest quite close by, so maybe there's a little batalier chick not too far from here. That would be very nice. I don't think you can hear that. It's kind of a bit more reverb and a bit more strident and a high-pitched squeaking. That's what a batalier sounds like when it's sitting in the nest. So we'll just go around the corner here. There's a tree in the road, of course, so pushed by an elephant. Are you watching, Brian?
Watching.
Not bad for a 23-year-old, eh? Now the batalier is just around the corner here. We've seen their nest around here, or we've seen them sitting in a tree around here. And whether their nest is in that tree or not, I don't know. Okay, so let's just go around the corner there. So I don't think you've probably heard a little bit touch of that. So the camera definitely picks it up, everybody, but you'll have to have pretty decent speakers if you're going to hear it. So we'll sneak through here, try not to snag ourselves in too much bush. Let's see if we can hear where they are. There. Oh. It's not a baby though by any stretch of the imagination. But that's the bird that was calling. Young Bateleur in this little grove of knobthorns. Brian, I think rather than going underneath the tree, why don't we go onto this termite mound here? That might also improve our signal. So we'll come up the termite mound, everybody, and we'll see if we can't peer through the bushes almost at eye level to where that Bateleur was calling from. No, straight in. Straight into a tree. Absolutely hopeless. All right, so the tree that bird flew out of is where the nest, I think, is. But I can't get a good enough view. It's a knobthorn tree, and the raptors do love the knobthorns because it's easy to build a platform a platform of sticks in the knobthorn. Because of the thorns, it kind of holds everything in place, and they also tend to drop off pieces of the tree, and so there are often sort of thorny branches underneath the tree that they can use. I always think that a raptor's nest looks like the most uncomfortable place to be born, especially if you're born a naked chick without any feathers. Horrible. Very much rather be a grey penduline tit or a sunbird, which make lovely little soft nests that you just love to lay your head down in. Okay, let's move on from our Bateleur sighting. So we are probably about 500 meters from where we started as the crow flies, and the lions were again another probably 300 meters to the south of that. So say that we are roughly 800 meters to the south of where the lions were. Now, Ashley in North Carolina, you want to know how far a lion's roar will travel. To the human ear, I would say probably about 2 or 3 kilometers, maybe 3 kilometers if the conditions are right, if the bush isn't too thick, if the air is not too thin. It tends to travel nicely when there's moisture in the air. And there, they're calling again. But you definitely won't hear them now. They're moving further south. I think to lions though, actually, their ears are better than ours. I think you'll find that that call can probably be heard from at least 5 kilometers, and 5 kilometers in miles would be about 3 miles, say 3 miles, maybe even further, especially on a calm night with a bit of air and not too much of 6 or 7 miles, at least 6 or 7 kilometers, so quite a long way. Really nice here. This is quite interesting. So the elephants. Missed that. Sorry everybody, there are a couple of, just one or two little issues with the radios at the moment, breaking up signal. Here is where an elephant has dug the roots of this tree out. Now this is a silver cluster leaf tree, and it's called a silver cluster leaf because unsurprisingly the leaves form a silver cluster. And if I bring that up to you, you might just be able to see, especially on this particular piece here, that silvery sheen of hairs on the silver cluster leaf. frozen, Brian. I'm as frozen as I can be. Okay, that is why it's called a silver cluster leaf, everybody. And there are two interesting things about this little sighting. Firstly, I don't know how much of the elephants that you've seen, if you've just joined us and you haven't seen them in the winter time, then this won't be particularly meaningful. But in the winter time, what the elephants do is they come and they dig around a place like this and they pull the roots out. They pull out little bits of root from the base of the tree. They come to the base of the tree. This one's been taken from the top as well. And then they also will dig a little bit around here, take the sand and fling it over themselves. And often around the base of a tree like this. Now the other interesting thing here is the fact that the silver cluster leaf apparently is a really good tree for making rope. And if you pull off the bark like this, look, I mean, I don't think I'd go climbing on the back end of one of these, but what you can do is if you pull it off very carefully and patiently, I'm not very good with the patience thing, there you go, and you take 3 little pieces, there we go, and then
Biting fly.
that snapping noise you heard was Brian has squashed a fly on his knee. There we go. It's very delightful to see. So you can have a look at the biting fly mess that Brian has just made. We'll show you how rope used to be made. Well, certainly little bits of string. And then, of course, as some people know, probably not many, you plait it. And you need 3 strands to plait. I've only got 2 long ones and 1 short one. And what you do is you fold one over the top, and you come from the other side, and the other side. Brian, do you do this with your hair ever?
Sometimes.
Brian has got magnificent locks of hair, you see. I don't plait my hair anymore. And there, we plait it together. And there are probably many better ways of doing it than this, but this is the way I would do it. And eventually, after an extremely patient morning sitting in the shade, plaiting together bits of bark and stripping them from silver cluster leaf trees and raisin trees, you eventually have a little piece of rope with which you can make a decorative, perhaps decorative bangle, bracelet, or you can even use it to do some fishing, or probably most likely, if you happen to be lurking around the bush, ideally you want to take all of the bark off it, but it's quite strong, and what you'd use that for is to create a trap, and a trap to catch, say, a francolin for breakfast or lunch. And how you do that is to take a, what did you do? You make a loop around, a sort of loop, and you place it on a stick, on a kind of sprung stick, so you'd bend a stick over. In fact, let me try and see if I can't show you how it would be done vaguely. So you take the loop, that will now be, pretend it's a bit bigger, to catch the francolin by the neck or by the body, and you take a stick like this, and you'd bend it down, right, and then you would attach this to the stick and attach another piece of string to the floor like that. And as the francolin walked through, this would be a very lightly holding, the strand going down to the ground would be very lightly holding, and as the francolin walked through, this would snap, pull the francolin up and grab it like that. And you wouldn't be too far away. I think the francolin, if it was a clever animal, would be able to get out of the trap. But that's how people, especially kids, used to walk around this area herding the cattle, and they didn't have obviously any tuck shops. Their parents didn't necessarily send them out with any food. They were told to go and forage in the bush, and that's what they used to do. So they'd catch a francolin, and while the cattle were grazing off in the distance and they were watching to make sure that the lions didn't eat any of their parents' cattle, they would make a little fire and then cook the francolin for breakfast. And that's what little kids did out here, aged sort of from 6 upwards. They'd be out here in the wild, maybe with an older kid to start with, but then they would be around here and looking after the cattle and making sure that the wild animals didn't take the family's cattle. And it was a tremendous shame if any of the cattle were lost. And that's how the lives that people lived here until pretty recently, you know. Right, And it's also the reason that the Shangans tend to have such a magnificent kind of tradition of tracking. Lots and lots of elephant activity along here. The lion again. Same place, they haven't moved at all. But for them to be calling now means that they're obviously feeling slightly threatened, that they should be calling at the time of the day. It's a little bit odd. Right, James, in the city, just on the subject, there were cattle in this area at one stage, local people's cattle. Yeah, signal shouldn't be bad here. I've dropped my binos. Sorry, Brian, can we can't, we're just going to walk slowly along here. I've left my binoculars behind, I think, at the last elephant sighting. So, James Bear, let me just walk quickly in front of you so that I can pick up me binoculars. I'll just jog. Don't worry, Brian, I'll come back now. There we go. James, you asked a fascinating question, because this area is not good for cultivation. You say, is it possible to cultivate stuff, fertilizer? Very poor area for any kind of cultivation, and it's one of the only reasons that it's a wildlife area now. Certainly in the early 1900s, this particular area, they tried all sorts of agriculture here. I don't think they ever used it to try and cultivate things. They certainly used it to try and run cattle, but there's just simply too much. There's a very fresh buffalo patty, so we'll keep our eyes open. So I'm going to talk a little bit quieter, James, just so that we can hear what's going on around us. And this particular area, or lots of it, used to be owned by a group called Transvaal Consolidated Mines. So there's some prospecting here, and when that didn't work, they tried to run cattle here. They tried a little bit of agriculture, but the soil is very poor, and there's not a huge amount of disease for cattle, but it's not a particularly well-watered area. And you have seen, as the dry season has progressed, so the amount of grass, really, it's pretty ropey out. Cattle in the communities that live outside, they definitely have a really tough time during the winter. So if you're trying to raise cattle for selling it, it's just not a good area. And that's why eventually all of this land was given over to wildlife. You'll find that in most parts of Africa, certainly in South Africa, the major wildlife areas or national parks, areas that were not commercially viable for anything else. And so, we're very grateful for them. They're not necessarily the most fertile areas at all, but beautiful for wildlife. Indigenous wildlife lives always better than domestic stock does, I think probably anywhere in the world. It's just adapted to the different diseases, the ticks. It's able to get away from the predators a bit more effectively as well. Beautiful, beautiful morning. So let's stop and have a look at this beautiful tree here called the caterpillar bush, or Ormocarpum tripocarpum. That's a good word to get the mouth moving in the morning. Ormocarpum tripocarpum, Ormocarpum tripocarpum. And while we're doing that, Mo, you want to know what we'd do if we came across the lions on foot? Well, the first thing we do is to stand dead still. Now this is an important thing. When you are out here, you have to understand the way that animals see you, and they see us as predators. Now if you stand still, you are behaving like a predator. If you run away, you're behaving like prey. So if those 5 lions came walking through the bush towards us now, the first thing I would do would be to assess, have they seen us? If they hadn't seen us, then I just wouldn't move at all. If I thought they had seen us or they'd smelt us and they were looking, then I would stand out in the open. I would make a noise so that they could see us, so that they weren't kind of looking for us. They knew exactly where we were, and then you stand your ground. And if they were coming through here, most male lions would get a bit of a fright. They'd probably skirt around and carry on their way. They don't want to engage us at all. It's a little bit different if we came, say we walked down the road there and we came across a pride of lions. They would probably get up and disperse. That's the most likely response. If they had cubs perhaps, or they were feeling very threatened, they might charge, or one lioness might charge. As long as you stand still, it's fine. You maybe shout at them and tell them to hey, 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 and then they'll probably stop pretty close by, turn around eventually and go away. So the key is to stand still. It's not to turn around and try and run away. And that's basically what you do if you see a lion on foot. It's the most exciting thing in the world to see a lion on foot, because we have a very primal response to them. And people say, well, how do you stand still when you see something like that? You don't even think about it. Your body knows. It's incredible to watch. I've never been with somebody who, on seeing a lion, has just turned and run. I've heard of people doing it. I've heard of people doing it more with seeing rhino or with seeing elephants. But I've very seldom heard of people who see a lion and their immediate response is to turn and run. Your immediate response is to just stop and look like that. And that's built deep into the core of our being and to our evolutionary past. So this is Ormocarpum tripocarpum, and it's a lovely feeling tree. And I know that, tree huggers tend to have a bit of a, poor reputation, or it's a bit of a used as a tree huggers used as a kind of term of disparagement, I suppose. But this is a wonderful tree to feel. It's got a lovely rough bark, a bit corky, and you can feel the leaves are soft, and you can also see how amazingly green they are. And in the absence of elephants, these trees make enormous trees, but this is probably the biggest they'll ever get here. Normally they're very scrubby little things that disappear onto the ground because the elephants absolutely love them. They eat the whole thing. If an elephant came across this tree, he'd chop it off at the base and devour everything, the leaves, the bark, the wood, everything. Even this little tree, has become a little ecosystem. And Brian, I don't know if you can see this tiny, delicate spider's web there. Just beautiful, delicate spider's web. And the only reason we can see it is because the sun is at the right angle. Most of the time you would never be able to see that. I can't see its owner, but its owner must be a tiny little spider, probably hiding under some of the lichen. You see the lichen here? Yeah. I'll pull a little piece of it off here. I can't see the spider. Oh, this is amazing. Brian, come around this side. You might be able to get him here. The spider is here. It's a tiny, tiny little thing. You see it there? Minute little spider. Now, that is now going to fill your screen up. But it's about the size of the edge of your fingernail. It's a tiny, tiny little spider. Sorry, I hit the tree. Steady it for you. There you go. That is beautiful. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? It's less than, I'd say it's probably 2 millimeters long, that spider. Legs and all. 2 millimeters is less than 1/10 of an inch. Oh, that's beautiful. And I don't know what kind of spider it is, I'm afraid. It's not one of the orb-web spiders. Oh, you know what? I think I can see it's probably a very small jumping spider. You probably can get a better view of it there, actually, than I'm getting with my bare eyes. It looks like it's got a couple of eyes in the front of it, so it might be a very, very tiny jumping spider. But it might not. I could well be wrong there. And this green stuff here is lichen. Now, lichen is a very unusual kind of plant. It's sort of half algae, half fungus. It does photosynthesize, but it doesn't really have roots. And you see it growing on rocks, you see it growing on trees, and loves this ormocarpum. And here's another, that's a different kind of lichen, I think, to this kind of beautiful kind of golden green stuff. Can you see the golden green stuff? That's also lichen. Growing on the caterpillar bush, ormocarpum, tripocarpum. Here's another bit, different kind. Isn't that amazing? That's not part of the tree, everyone. Stunning. What an amazing little tree. Careful, Brian. Now, I was talking a little bit earlier. Talking a little bit earlier about, let's go through here, Brian. Talking a little bit earlier about the golden orbweb spider, and Tammy in Seattle, Washington. And you want to know what happens to them when they're not around. They actually only last a season, as far as I understand it. So they don't migrate and they don't hibernate. I think that the adults only last for a season. They lay their eggs, and as far as I'm aware, they then overwinter. They die off as the sort of summer progresses and towards the end of summer, and then they hatch out during the rainy season and they pop up and start to build their webs again in the summertime. Let's pop across to Steph and see what he's up to. We'll continue through this little sort of bevy of gems, little natural gems of interesting things, and we'll see you just now.
Welcome back, and we've decided that we'd extend our search to the next ring of roads around Djuma Camp to see what we can pick up. And it's been quite nice, I must say. The day is sparkly clear. It's one of those days where there's just very little atmospheric dust. I think it's a combination of the wind and the rain over the last couple of days has really served to make the air here crystal clear. It's very sharp and very clear today. It's actually a fantastic day. It's still quite chilly. Andrew and Lou are both dressed up in jackets at the back. I'm quite lucky as I sit in this very warm footwell where I am at the moment, as you can see. So my little skinny legs over there, and my shorts, I'm quite comfortable where I am at the moment. Now, the bush has been quite quiet around us. It's been throwing up the odd kudu hidden in the bush and the odd impala herd that's been hidden in the bush. We heard some squirrels giving an alarm call about 10 minutes ago. Here we have some nyala. And on a day like today where you don't have clues which are immediately accessible, that being said, I mean, when we started this morning we had those monkeys that were giving their alarm call, which we missed out on. It is always a very, very good idea in the bush to switch off and listen. I know that Brent and Scott and James and Jamie do it on occasion, and it's definitely where I have the most luck, is switching off in prime areas to listen to what the bush is trying to tell you. Isn't that beautiful? So that's a Nyala ewe. A gregarious animal, and by gregarious I mean that they enjoy living in groups together, and part of the tragelaphines. So the tragelaphines are the spiral-horned antelope. It's a group of antelope that include kudu and bongo and sitatunga and bushbuck and nyala. Quite a nice group of animals. Almost all of them are quite thick-bodied. They have these stripes on them. They're all browsers, living in a variety of habitats, with the sitatunga probably living in the most bizarre of habitats. It lives on completely waterlogged rafts of reeds in swamps. The tail busy wagging. very thick. Anyway, let's carry on going. Very quiet where we are at the moment. But this road is very good for leopard. I'm hearing these sporadic updates on the Game Drive channel that the guys are talking about lion activity almost everywhere, except that they can't find them. There's just tracks of these lions all over the place. It looks like these prides were busy running circles around one another again last night. I'm busy listening in my ear even as we were speaking, which is why I had that vacant look on my face over there. It seems like there's two different prides of lion, the Kahumas and the Talalas, which were walking through Torchwood and Buffalo's Hook last night. But with nobody being able to find anything. There must be about 7 or 8 field guides at the moment busy cruising through this area, all looking for the lions. And there's nothing that says that we can't come around the corner and bump into them right now. They don't seem to have any clue where these lions are. Quite often that results in you coming around the corner and finding these cats lying flat on the ground. They seem to have an ability to jump through blocks without leaving a trace, especially when they're moving quite dynamically like they were doing or seem to have been doing last night. Right, so we are now we're driving next to this drainage line, and having walked in this area and been walking in this area for the last couple of days, the amount of game paths that are in here is actually quite phenomenal, with a lot of good bush, a lot of wallows. I have no doubt. I mean, here we go. It's quite a large herd of female kudu actually. Let me look here. Get out of the way. And they're moving through the bush. Now this is very similar to the Nyala, in that they belong to the same group of animals, those spiral horned antelope, and you can just see them through the bush. Lovely. And how quickly do they disappear? Those striped coats and the grey on their coats makes them blend into this bush actually fantastically well. You can go forward a little bit. There you go. It's actually a lovely picture of a kudu. You can just see how well that camouflage is working. I mean, from your view, there are 2 kudu there, but there are actually about 4 kudu there. That one's standing nicely in the open. He's a nice fat belly, starting to put on some weight finally after managing to weather the storm that is the dry season out here. So all the new leaves and shoots that they're busy eating at the moment are definitely helping to improve their condition. There must easily be about 10 or 12 kudu in this particular herd, and it's a very large herd for this area. That's nice. It's nice to see that they're doing so well. The large females, are all pregnant at the moment. Their rut for their mating season was earlier in the year, at the end of summer, and they will start to give birth to babies now again in about January, February is when we start seeing an increase in baby activity. No, you can find baby kudu throughout the year, but definitely see an increase as soon as the summer leaves are in full bloom. You see an increase. So my gut feel tells me that they utilize the new growth to help them, just to give their babies that final kick, and then when summer's in full swing and the leaves are very robust, then they drop their babies and enjoy that late summer flush that comes out where this bush is just dense. Now we're going to be going through a bit of a signal dip, so don't go anywhere. I'll be finished, or we'll be through it in a bit. Today was one of those anomalies. Must be the clear air that we're having, where we didn't get any signal dip through there, which is nice. And now we're coming up the other side. Immediately what I noticed on the road is some fairly fresh elephant dung deposited last night. And this is now more in tune with where that elephant, that young bull that we were with earlier on. There's a warthog that's over there. I'm going to see if we can see them. Warthog here are generally move at light speed when they see a vehicle, but I think he's far enough away for him not to move. You might just be able to get his silhouette there in the bush. There he goes. Warthog, they're actually quite difficult to film much, I'll be honest with you. You see more of them coming down to the Djuma Cam than what we could show you on Game Drive. And he's busy standing there. It looks like a male warthog, judging from the amount of warts they got on their face. So you have a look at the warts underneath the eyes and the warts above their mouths, where their mouth sort of ends. If there are two pairs, in other words, under the eyes and at the mouth, it's a male. If they just have the pair under the eyes, then it's just a female. Well, not just a female, then it is a female. So let's have a look there. And just as I pick up my binoculars, boom, gone. Alright, not to worry. It allows us to carry on going. Birds are just singing away today. It is fantastic. This morning, I woke up at about 10 to 4 this morning, and the first bird calls were already going. And on Monday, when I woke up at 3:15, the birds started to sing at about 3:30, between 3:30 and about 20 to 4. So that's the time that the birds are getting going already this time of the year. I mean, it's just insane. we've been having a look at while we had a look at the Nyala and the kudu, Siberia, one of our Zoomies, has asked what the gestation period is between the two of them. And Siberia, I actually can't answer that question right now, to be honest with you. It has slipped my mind while I've been thinking about it, so I'm going to have to revert to my book. It's one of those facts that unless you use it, you lose it. And the last time I answered a question about kudu and Nyala gestation periods was probably about 2 years ago. So I'm going to be going to my not my mammal behavior book. That isn't what's going to happen. Let me have a look through all the books that I have over here. I have a paraphernalia of books. The best one to use to answer this question is going to be the Mammals of Southern Africa, a field guide written by a naturalist called Smithers. And he has written some fantastic books over the years. And this one will give me an idea very quickly of the answer. So let's go and find Nyala. Which is on page 224. So here we have the Nyala. And right under life history it says the gestation is 220 days. And I am almost certain that when we go to kudu, which will be in the other direction of course, or not, let's just go, when in doubt always use the glossary. So 220 days for the Nyala, and the kudu is these flies are starting again today.
Before you look?
I'd say it's probably about exactly the same, so that's actually a good idea there, Andrew.
I'm gonna go 240.
240, that's the guess, 240. Let's see who can get it. Kudu 219. So let's see who's right here. Probably Andrew. He's got a brilliant sense of things over here. So kudu, let's go to life history of kudu. Gestation 210 to 225 days. So pretty much identical. 220 days for the Nyala, 220 days for the kudu, which is quite astounding actually, considering that the size difference, there is actually quite a big size difference between the two. So good question there, Siberia. You've definitely made me remember what's going on now. Something has caught my eye while we've been here. Something's being mobbed in that tree in front of us. Now once again, that just shows you to switch off and look through a book and answer some questions absolutely leads to some enlightenment. It looks like a bird of some sort. Let's go and have a look over there. It's being mobbed. Hasn't flown away under the pressure. No, there's an owl. Oh no, it's a gymnogene. Why not just get it wrong? So that is the African harrier hawk, now hiding behind the branch over there quite successfully. He'll come out into the open now. There we go. His yellow face. And what he's doing is hanging upside down over there. These birds are almost specially made or purpose built to access hole nesting birds. And we were talking about the lilac-breasted roller busy nesting in holes in trees. And there's obviously a hole in a tree there that some birds have a nest in. And this African harrier hawk is now trying to get whatever's in that nest out under mobbing pressure from the inhabitants or the current inhabitants of the nest. Now, and who's nesting there is a Burchell starling. And have a look at how that bird can hang upside down. I mean, he's totally upside down at the moment, using a combination of his feet and his beak to try and get into the hole or into the cavity, all the while being mobbed by that Burchell starling, and who's about to be joined by a drongo. It's actually quite fascinating to see. To be honest with you, to see them for this long is actually quite rare. So this is actually quite a good sighting. Yeah, there he flies off. He hasn't flown off just yet. Let's see if he's actually managed to excavate a baby from that hole. I think he'll get a gap from the front here. There we go. Nice view in the light. I don't see anything clutched in his talons. No, nothing clutched in his talons. And there he flies off to his next branch with the host of... There he comes. He's actually going to land here in front of us. Awesome. Let's see if we can get a bit closer. I don't think we're going to disturb them. They're actually birds that don't mind, don't get flustered too much. You can actually see his face changing color. They're one of the very few birds whose faces can change color with their mood, and his face is going from bright yellow to red. No man, where are you going? So, and that's the end of that then. So, so here we go. Lilac-breasted roller calling above us. We've obviously come into the middle of a bird party. There's been a lot of birds here at the moment. There's a striped cuckoo. One for the birders, if I can ask Andrew to turn around. This is quite rare to see actually. One for the birders in the group. I know for those of you who follow Scott, he'd be quite proud to add this. That is either a striped or a Jacobin cuckoo, and I'm just going to be taking out my bird book while you're busy trying to grab screenshots of that bird. And I think that it is probably the striped cuckoo. I'm going to tell you that now. The African cuckoo, common cuckoo. With his crest, the Jacobin cuckoo. So that's what we're busy having a look at the moment. The Jacobin cuckoo. I'm going to be showing you here. This is the Jacobin cuckoo. We're looking at this particular one right here. Right, and they've literally just arrived. And have arrived to make use of all the hairy caterpillars that we have around at the moment. That is their prey, predominantly their prey source, is hairy caterpillars, which I have seen an absolute profusion of for the last couple of weeks, and that's what they'd be combing through the bush for. And there's the sound that it makes. These guys are brood parasites, which means that they don't look after their own babies. They actually lay their eggs in the nests of other birds, and the Jacobin cuckoo parasitizes the bulbul. So what he would do, or there we go, flew off. what that cuckoo would do is fly around looking for hairy caterpillars during the breeding season, which happens about now. What they'd do is they'd search for their particular host bird, which in this case would be a bulbul. The bulbul's nest would be attacked and one of the eggs kicked out, or even all of the eggs kicked out by the cuckoo. The cuckoo would then lay their egg inside the nest, which looks almost identical to the bulbul's egg. The bulbul will come back then and realize, hey, but my eggs are still here. Incubate the egg and actually hatch the egg and bring up and feed the cuckoo's baby, which quite often is much bigger than the host bird. You can't imagine that the parent bird, the bulbul, looks at this cuckoo, obviously a different shape, and brings it up. But they do, you know, in a very successful way of breeding. Cuckoos are fairly common out here. All right, and from birds to from the Jacobin cuckoo to James on the bushwalk. He's got an update on his dung topic for the day. James, you know, you can find the most interesting things. We'll see you in a bit.
It sounds to me like you have been having the most fantastic time with Steph and the Gymnogene / African Harrier hawk. Really special stuff to see them mobbing or trying to get into a nest with those double jointed intertarsals, as I'm sure Steph explained to you. Now, we have come across yet more dung, and the interesting thing about this dung, just following on from the dung conversation, the beetle conversation we were having earlier, is that in the height of the summer, this dung would not maintain this kind of shape. It would have been flattened by now, because of the actions of the beetles. Now I think, as you can see, the sun has come out and it's turning into a rather balmy day. This kind of temperature will encourage the beetles that are below the ground to come up and start to really fizz around and fly around and eat the dung and start to, you know, get on with eating it, and the heavy business of breeding. And that's basically what dung beetles are born to do, other than eat dung. That's what we're all born to do. And they will flatten a piece of dung like this completely onto the ground, and it will be very crushed into very fine little particles. And the other interesting thing I wanted to show you about it is that this elephant is clearly still eating a majority of sticks. It's not eating anything in the way of grass yet, and that's just indicative of the fact that we haven't had the proper rains yet. So the grass is not long enough for the elephants. Elephants would much rather be eating grass than they would sticks that grind away at their teeth and eventually will, you know, play a role in reducing their lifespans. You can see a huge piece of stick in there. It just gives you an idea of how poor an elephant's digestive system is. Right, now over there I'm just lying very comfortably in the new rays and warmth of the sun. You can see the Drakensberg mountains, and they look very crisp and clear today, and that's because of the cold front that we've just had coming through this area. Right, while we walk along, I believe there are a few queries about dung beetles, so we'll try and discuss those, and we'll walk gently along this road, and we'll tell you what we can tell you, and perhaps see a few more interesting little bits and pieces. Atmosphere has changed completely from that early morning expectancy. Oh, Brian, I don't think I'm going to try and make you film that. It'll make everyone ill. But it's a red-breasted swallow. A little pair of red-breasted swallows has just flown over. I suspect they've been visiting some mud in a little mud wallow, and they'll go and... Have you got him? Well done.
Something else flying.
Oh, yes, that's definitely not a red-breasted swallow. That's a fairly substantial bird. I've lost my binoculars again. Hang on. I'll go and tell you what they are. That actually looks like a vulture, Brian. I think it looks like a white-backed vulture to me, if I was to have a guess. And they, of course, will now start to fly because the day is starting to heat up a bit. So they can find some thermals. It is a white-backed vulture. What a relief. And I don't know the kind of detail you saw on it there, but it's molting a little bit. You can see it's missing a couple of the primary flight feathers, and they do molt from time to time. Those feathers need to be replaced, and the birds are very fastidious, especially vultures, about making sure that the feathers are in good condition. They preen a lot. Vultures will sit with their wings hanging out like this, which helps the filaments of the feathers to realign themselves. But every so often a feather gets so worn down that it has to be shed, and then it will grow another one in its place. They don't kind of replace on a continuous basis like our hair does, so they do lose feathers, and you'll always see a bird with a gap or two in its primary feathers, and that's from the replacement, from the shedding of those old feathers. Now, over here is a red-billed buffalo weaver's nest, and I think it's unoccupied. But interestingly, they tell you that a red-billed buffalo weaver's nest are basically as reliable as a compass. They will be on the northwestern side of a tree no matter where you are, and that's precisely where this one is. We don't really know why. I think it's got quite a lot to do with heat balance within the nest. It's basically a block of flats, and if you're on the northwestern side of the tree, what you do is you pick up the afternoon sun in the winter time, because the sun sets to the north there, and so it keeps you warm for as long as it can before the night comes. Then the sun shifts, of course, during the course of the summer months, and actually sets over there. And if this tree is dead, and that so it doesn't have any foliage in it, but the sun sets off to the southwest now, and in the summertime that means that your home is then shaded, which is quite nice. Let's quickly go across to Steph. He's got some playing elephants. Wonderful stuff. We'll carry on along the road here.
Have a look at what we've just bumped into over here. Is this elephant are having a game with one another, and the one is actually laying down, and he's got some friends that are not wanting to. Whoa, we got some impala causing some panic. Oh, we got this elephant chasing around the impala. Epic. Let me turn the car. Oh, and I've just been told something so interesting. It's Jess's last drive sitting in the Johannesburg office today, and all she wanted to see was a baby elephant. So here's a big shout out to Jess on your last drive. I'm glad we managed to do that for you, and we obviously wish you luck in your new endeavor, and we'll see you when you get back soon. So what is happening? Why have we got chaos happening at the moment? Why are these impala running around like mad things? The answer is quite simple, in that female is going to drop her baby very, very soon. Have a look at this. We got some stotting. Awesome. So what's happening is the females are increasing, or having an increase in their estrogen, and this is creating this protective instinct in this male, and it's actually just going to get worse as the females near dropping their lambs, which will happen any day now, to a point where the female gets harassed almost non-stop, and then will eventually manage to leave the herd. She will then drop her baby, usually in the middle of the day, and they will all drop their babies. Well, the majority of them, at least, anyway, will drop their babies within a couple of days of one another, and you get these nursery herds of babies that then form. So that behavior that we saw there, this wild running around, this male chasing this very pregnant lady, is just telling me that we are fast approaching the time where we get to see some baby impala again, and I can't wait. They are very, very cute for a couple of days. Now we are literally surrounded by elephant. I've got Andrew, who's supposed to be looking through the camera's head on a swivel, with his elephant coming at us from all directions. Quite tough to see, but we are about 50 feet from 5 or 6 elephant at the back of the car, and they are approaching us. They're going to feed right up onto the car, it looks like. Have a look. I'm missing it. Sorry guys, there's just so much going on over here. There's just doesn't know where to point. We don't know where to point the camera. There's a female elephant coming out of the bush, and let's see. There we go. Okay, so what you're looking at there is called stotting. It's a show of strength and fitness. And I'm actually quite glad that we got to see that. It's quite rare to film. Let's see if these ones on the left start doing it. It just takes one.
Yeah, they come back.
And here they all come back at the back of the group, all still stotting. Wonderful. And what that is, literally, it's just to show predators how fit and how strong they are. It's just exuberance at the beginning of this, at the beginning of the season. Some energy to spare. Oh, here we go. Male chasing another very pregnant female. Oh, shame. I must say, I feel for them. It's not easy. Here they go again, bounding around. And this is just a reaction. Too much estrogen eliciting these. A lot of good food at the moment. They're all healthy and happy because of the season that's changed. Getting ready to have their babies. And that stotting behavior is almost infectious. It's that bound. Now it has been proven, not here, but it has been proven that impala that have been stotting are not targeted by predators in the area. So it's a show of force that, excuse me, another ambush. Excuse me there, I should warn you when a sneeze is coming. And it has been proven that predators definitely ignore these animals that have been stotting and favor animals that haven't. I'm just busy listening. Around us we've got elephant feeding, we've got a lot of elephant, we've got these impala going crazy, another group of elephants standing on the other side of the impala, and then we also have trumpeting elephant, wildly trumpeting elephants in the distance just on the other side of this group. So a lot is actually going on right here at the moment. I don't quite know what it is, which is why I was trying to be quiet and listen. I think let's go and see if we can get into the middle of this herd of impala. Generally, this time of the year you can actually see the babies kick inside the tummies, and I always quite enjoyed that. It's lovely to witness. I'm going to see if we can get to see some elephant while we are looking at one of these baby impala in the tummy. This female in front of us has enormous tusks. She's beautiful. There we go. Sitting in the thick of it, for lack of a better word, we've got easily 20 elephant around us at the moment, and probably close on 50 impala or so. That youngster that you're having a look at the moment, just using his newfound skills with his trunk and his foot, probably just having copied mom do exactly the same thing over the last couple of weeks. Now, elephant will eat roughly about 80% of their diet this time of the year of woody species of plants, so leaves, bark, roots, and wood. But as the grass grows, and look at what she's doing. She's now digging a trench, and in that trench is going to be some roots.
I don't know if you noticed that, but it looked like the youngster was eating there, and then the older one chased it off, then the mother chased the other older one away.
Yeah, it is quite weird, that, but it's. I think they were just having a game, and I think what happened is you had these impala run in and create a little bit of confusion, and of course, as soon as elephants get confused, they follow the lead of the matriarch. And almost getting into a corral position there, which is where the babies go into the middle and the other elephants put their bums around the babies and face their tusks and their trunks outwards. But then they just decided to move off. They realized that these impala were just playing around. Gilly in Wisconsin has just asked why there's such a big difference between African and Indian elephant, and is it because Indian elephants have been domesticated and have been ridden by man, which gives them that characteristic concave back? Gilly, the answer to that is no. I don't think that elephants have had enough domestication to have actually physiologically been changed by it, the Indian elephant. The Indian elephant and the African elephant are different from one another basically because of the habitats that they live in, and they are completely different species. You can see this elephant's ear has been, I'm trying to see if it's been folded over. It's actually been cut. Can you believe it? Now that could actually have happened in any number of ways. The most common way for that to happen is actually fire or a massive injury. So elephants do get caught in bushfires from time to time, and being the thinnest skin on the elephant's body, you might find that that the ear was damaged in some way, or it was caught on a branch and quite badly ripped, and between oxpeckers and her fiddling with it, her ear is actually torn off. Apart from a slight decrease in the ability for the elephant to thermoregulate, which is what they use their ears for, that will have no further effect on that elephant. She's absolutely fine, as you can see, in very robust health, and with a baby in tow, so it hasn't had any market effect on her. But what an interesting phenomenon. I've never seen an ear so badly damaged without any further evidence of damage on an actual elephant. So that's actually quite nice to see, a half-eared elephant. Quite bizarre. And as you can see, the pit or the trench that she dug and used slightly to dig some roots and then to have a dust bath in is now being inspected by another youngster. He's now also using it to have a bit of a dust bath. Had a small little dust bath and then moved on. Here we have an elephant that is quite characteristic. Off on our left-hand side is that one elephant that has that skew tusk, or that tusk that's facing backwards. And we have seen her throughout the season. There are actually a number of elephant here that have that tusk. This is the one with a notch in the tusk. She's actually using that backward-facing tusk to feed. What amazes me, and I'll be honest with you, this particular elephant, is how, when in flight, so when in panic, this elephant doesn't impale her leg with that tusk. And I can only imagine it's because she has learnt at the exact angle which to hold her head when she's running. But I can't even see any scarring on her leg, which would say to me that that was a lesson hard learned. So she's just got one incredibly long tusk that she rests on her leg with a notch in it, because she's utilized it as a very handy tool, obviously, judging from that notch and how well that notch has been used. And doesn't hurt herself when she runs blindly. And I mean, elephant, they can panic, and they can run panicked into the bush. And she obviously is not hurting herself at all, which is just astounding. I've been marveling at it since I first saw her a couple of months ago. Funnily enough, my impression of Djuma is that there are quite a few elephant here with tusk anomalies. I'm actually at a loss to explain why. It's not for inbreeding. Djuma is not an enclosed reserve whatsoever. We sit on the fringes of the Kruger National Park in what we call the Greater Kruger National Park. Here we've got these impala sailing past us again. Jumping over the trees. Now the Greater Kruger National Park is also open to a number of other privately owned reserves, the Timbavati, the Baluli, the Klaseri, not only the Sabi Sands. It's also open to reserves in other countries, the Limpopo Transfrontier National Park, the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier National Park, which is in Mozambique, and actually has game corridors all the way through to Gonorozo in Zimbabwe. So the elephant here definitely are not interbreeding with one another at a point where you'd actually start to find birth defects happening. So this tusk deformity that we're seeing at the moment is either hereditary, in other words, it's being passed down generation to generation, or it's from some other type of mineral deficiency. I'm just seeing too much evidence. Too many different elephant are here with backwards facing tusks. There must be about, for those of you who've been watching a long time, you could help me out here, but there must be probably about 3 to 5 full-grown female elephants this size that have these tusk deformity. And to me that just says that it's hereditary. It's passed down from mothers, very successful mothers like this in actual fact. Old cows that have had many babies, passing down the gene for a skewed tusk, or a deformed, as we would see, a deformed tusk. Obviously she doesn't think it's a deformity whatsoever. She's using it as a very handy tool. These impala running around. Once again, excuse us for zipping about the screen like this. It's just to try and catch all the action of these impala doing their thing. So Dr. Debbie has asked, looking at these impala jumping around like mad, if stotting has anything to do with nesting behavior. You know, there's just this general energy boost that that animals having babies seem to get. And I'd have to say yes in this particular instance, because stotting is only really evident when predators are around. I've only actually seen animals stot when leopard or lion or cheetah parade in front of them. And I'd say that this morning, apart from the weather being fairly cool and there being a lot of just good vegetation around at the moment, I would say that the stotting behavior is absolutely that. So well done, Dr. Debbie. I think it's we can attribute it to it. I don't see any evidence to provide me with an answer to the contrary. But do they all come back again? They're literally just running from one side of the vehicle to the other, not really even going anywhere. I've got some male impala coming, his male impala is chasing another one of his females back. Alright, so we've got this big female at the moment coming towards us. The impala are creating a little bit of confusion. This is male impala. You might actually hear what they do. There's the male impala on the fringe of this herd are just roaring at one another. That is an old female and probably one of the nicest views of her that we've got. Now let's see what she allows us to do. Have a look at how she gets her head and tusk out of the way of her leg. No, don't start this behavior with us, we're just watching you. So what I'm worried about at the moment with an elephant like this is displacement anger. So she's nervous with these impala creating confusion in the bush, and what she's going to do is take it out on a soft target. And I don't want that soft target to be us. Elephants are renowned for displacement anger. And although I'm not expecting anything untoward from her, I definitely need to keep it in mind. I've just noticed, have a look at the way she walks and keeps her tusk away from her leg. I mean, it's within inches of puncturing her leg. And look how sharp that tusk is. And we definitely have seen this elephant many times before. It's diagnostic, that notch in the tusk. But have a look at that edge, that knife edge on that tusk. And there is absolutely no evidence of it puncturing her leg. I just find that phenomenal. For me, that's the most amazing thing with this particular elephant. Is when panicked, an elephant panic a lot. How she doesn't stab her own leg is just beyond me. Anna Marie has asked if I've ever seen weirdly tusked elephant bulls and not just females. Anna Marie, absolutely. I've seen bull elephants with tusks, not quite as bizarrely shaped as this one, but you do get bull elephant with tusks that are crossed over, that are highly bent up in any one particular direction. I've even seen an elephant with two tusks bent down, but not quite with the same, I would say, exaggeration as I have seen with this particular elephant. She's definitely a very special elephant. One beautiful tusk and one tusk that is very long and just as pretty, faced in the other direction. And she does use that tusk. There's lots of notches on that tusk that she uses it. The temperature heating up. My old favorite, the faithful flies, have started to come in and are making their presence known. You'll notice from the bushes that started to shake in front of you, we've got some wind that's blown in from somewhere. And the clouds, where they were striated this morning, have now become nice and fluffy. You'll see over these elephants, you'll notice the clouds coming in. They're quite low, not very high off the ground. And we'll see what that does throughout the course of the day. You don't actually know what's going on. There's two elephants busy wrestling with one another, just two youngsters, trunks intertwined. Much the same with any play that we witness with babies. It's all just practice for when they get a bit older and the males have to start wrestling with one another for mating rights. It's all a bit of play and practicing. You can see them pushing against one another there, joined by a third one. Ashley in North Carolina has asked how many muscles are in an elephant trunk. Actually, it's a question that I can answer in two ways in actual fact. How many muscles in terms of how many different types of muscles that you've got in an elephant's trunk, or how many muscle fibers or muscle bundles that you've got. As far as I know, in terms of muscle bundles, there are about 100,000 different type muscle bundles inside that elephant trunk. So a very densely muscled appendage. How many different types of muscles in the elephant trunk? They have almost every type of muscle fiber that you can get, even one that's specific to just elephant, a helical muscle. So they've got muscles that can contract and expand, they've got muscles that can swell up and constrict, and then they have a helical muscle that can concertina their trunk out, not just expanded in a straight line. So, and they have every type of muscle fiber that mammals produce, elephants have, including one that's unique to elephants, that helical muscle that's in their trunk. So I hope that answered your question. It's actually very peaceful where we are at the moment. You'll notice that as Andrew swings the camera around, these impala that we drove into are now literally about 15 feet away from us. It's a young male. He was born last year. He's about to get some brothers and sisters. And made it through his first year of life. Something that 50% of his cousins didn't up to this time. And is one of the reasons why impala all mate within a rut season, so they all mate they're mated with at the same time, and all have their babies around the same time as well, is that they glut the system with youngsters. And have all their babies at around about the same time, which satiates all the predators and give the babies that do survive a much better chance of just getting through those first couple of weeks. Have a look how close we are to these impala. I mean, she's just, isn't she beautiful? The roaring that we would have heard a little bit earlier with those male impala is exactly the same noise that they make during the rutting season. Lewis in Buffalo remarked on that. Now, although impala have quite a wide repertoire of calls, they make a soft mewling noise when they have babies. They also have that roaring noise that you hear that the male will exhibit. Here he comes here. Got his tail fluffed out. Beautiful male. Keeping all his ladies in check. There we go. As you saw that, you would have noticed that in May during the rut, that behavior with that little roar that he gave there. And he would have, at the moment, ostracized all the young males, immature males and the young males off to one side. And that's exactly what he's busy doing over here now. He's corralling the males away from the females. His tail's fluffed out, giving a little bit of a roar. He's probably going to burst into flight chasing something right now. But what he's effectively doing is he's cutting out all the young males and forcing them to go to the periphery. He's now just brought till his female's back. And I see he's actually got a wound on his side from a fight. So near miss with one of his just looks like it scraped the hair there. It didn't look like it did any damage. A near miss was one of his challenges. It would have been one of the more mature males that he would have had a tussle with. And their horns are so devilishly sharp that even just a little bit of a mistiming when they clash horns together would have produced that. Now have a look at that gland. Can't really see it over here. Let me move a little bit. Andrew says that he's going to be able to shut. Oh, there you go. You can see that black gland on the back foot. That is a tarsal gland. It's not really known why impala have that gland. I've heard a variety of different explanations or hypotheses. The one that I enjoy the most would have to be the fact that as an impala jumps at night time to avoid predators, they are able to smell that of their compatriot in front of them. So one impala jumps over a tree to get away from a leopard or a lion, and the next impala smells that burst of smell coming from that gland, and it triggers an immediate jump response from whoever's following it. And of course, impala jump spectacularly well, quite often jumping clear over predators and clear over bushes and trees. And that's what I'm told is the reason for having evolved that gland. It's quite unique to impala, that massive gland on the back of the foot. A good observation over there. There's a tiny baby elephant, a couple of weeks old, still following mom blindly, head down. You see she's coming through the bush there, and there's the little baby. Let's see if we can get a better view of her. She should come out into the open over here, otherwise I will move the car. Seeing a youngster like that is always something quite special. Let's go and see if we can get a bit closer. Elephant numbers in the park have been increasing steadily from the early 1900s. In 1903, there were no elephants in the Kruger National Park. By 1905, there were 3 bulls that crossed in from Mozambique. And today we have about 15 to 20,000, depending on what census reports you believe. And the little youngster is wanting some milk. You can see him stretching up there, just stretching up between his mother's front legs to get some milk there. She's obviously wanting nothing of it. Oh, that is so cute, man. So elephant do really, really well in the Kruger National Park. Their numbers have been increasing. They had a little bit of a drop in their numbers in the 1980s due to quite intensive poaching pressure for tusks. Kruger National Park rallied to that threat, and poaching was, commercial at least poaching was eradicated in the late 1980s into the 1990s. And elephants enjoyed and have enjoyed many years of relative peace and quiet on the back of that. with their numbers steadily increasing since then. Elizabeth in Minneapolis has asked me if I'm familiar with a place in Mozambique where elephants are nearly tuskless due to poaching pressure. Elizabeth, no, not a specific place. You find tuskless elephant almost everywhere in Africa, and yes, in areas where poaching is a little bit more prevalent than in others, you do find a higher instance of tuskless elephant. But you don't find entire populations of tuskless elephant. I'm not aware of it anyway. If you do have the reference to that, please feel free to email it to me. I'd love to know about it. And on that note, we are quickly going to go through to James, who has some dwarf mongoose on his walk, which is quite rare to get on foot. So before they run away, go through there. We'll see you in a bit.
You've been having an incredible time with some enormous animals, and we've been sitting here enticing these little dwarf mongoose out of their mound, and it is just so special to have them this close to us. We're probably about 10 meters from them. It's about 30 feet, and they're just starting to trust us enough to come out. We've been sat here for about 20 minutes, well, no, not quite 10 minutes maybe, and we've made little sort of squeaking sounds, which is, well, some people might consider a little bit off, but what it's done is enticed them out. Because when they saw us coming, they were a bit nervous, and now there are two of them there, you can see. Isn't that just wonderful? Tiny little mongoose. And that's their little home. They'll live inside that termite mound, and they'll have a number of temporary refuges around here that they like to live in. But to have them this close to us on foot is so special, and we can't really move, because I think you'll find that they'll disappear back inside. Just every so often they relax a bit, and then they look and see. There's another one come out the right-hand side, Brian, of the mound. There he is. And now there's a third one in the middle. And if we stand here for long enough, I think what you'd find is the entire troop, probably about 10 of them, when we first arrived there were about 10, would come out and sit on the top of the mound, sun themselves. And eventually, I mean, if we spent enough time, just like with the meerkats of the Kalahari, with whom Brian spent a huge amount of time, I think eventually these mongoose would just start to go about their business without worrying about us at all. So that would probably be a period of days and weeks as opposed to just a couple of minutes. Look at that. There's another little one there sticking its head out. It's so sweet. Look how shiny the coat is. Excellent condition. You know an animal's in good condition when its coat is shining in the sun. Incredible speed with which their heads move. It's always amazed me. If you look to the side, it's a slow movement. These things kind of flick their heads side, up, down, all around, always looking carefully. Obviously the threats that they face are physically substantially greater than the ones we do. One just had a bit of a yawn, that's why it was opening its mouth. They keep very gentle hours to the mongoose. They don't like to strain themselves too much. They're just enjoying, as I was when you last saw me. I was lying next to a pile of dung, just enjoying that feeling of the morning sun on my face and on my back. And look at them. Now they'll go off eventually once they're warm enough, and once they've decided that either that we are not a threat or once we've left. They'll go off and they'll forage around here, and they'll eat anything from little spiders and scorpions. They do like to eat scorpions, possibly the odd tiny rodent, lots of lizards and that sort of thing, maybe a little bit of fruit, and they're largely carnivorous, and they'll forage around for most of the day, and then when it gets hot they'll rest in the shade, and they'll never be too far from a temporary refuge that exists in their territory. So this is probably in the middle of their territory, this little termite mound. And we'll stay here a little bit longer. Let's head across to Steph. Apparently that little elephant is suckling again. I think that is just a wonderful thing to be seeing. Please enjoy it and appreciate it. We'll stand here for a bit longer and see you just now.
This mom and baby or newborn elephant calf have stopped in the shade of this peltiforum tree, and that little baby is just showing you exactly why they are so adaptable. He's just followed his mom, brand new little baby, and you saw him kicking at the leaves and twigs, having watched mom only do it for a couple of days. There goes that funny tusked elephant again. I'm going to try as much as I can to try and follow this herd. They seem to be very relaxed with us. And I have no doubt that throughout the day you're actually going to be seeing more of these elephants. We're actually quite close to the Djuma Dam, and it looks like by this afternoon they're going to be coming through to the dam for some water. It's the only water that is here at the moment, or close to here at the moment. And keep an eye on that Djuma Dam, Cam, because that little baby will be very cute if you get to see him. If you get to see him playing in the water. I don't mean to disturb you. Don't worry. I just needed to crash over that one last bush. It's not a good entry into a sighting. They don't crash over at least one dry stick and make an absolute racket. Oh, how cute is that little guy? Have a look at that little guy just having an absolute roll in the grass. I have no idea what it's rolling in, to be quite honest. It just looks like he's having some fun. It's not because he wants to have a sleep. He's busy playing over there with something. Always busy rolling in something. I don't know. It didn't look like he was smelling anything in the grass over there, but that's actually an elephant. It's not a dog. Oh, that's epic. And now it's, because it's such bizarre behavior, one of his cousins has come over, and there's mom. Also come over to see what's going on. Probably a previous calf, that actually, from that female. They stay in very close contact with one another. And quite often successive generations of babies would help to rear the next generation. So you do find that it's probably either a cousin or a sibling, more than likely a sibling. Excuse that. It sounded a lot worse than it actually is. It was just a branch busy scratching against one of the plates. Now these elephants are walking into a bit of thick bush, so probably won't be able to follow them for too much longer, but I think just because that little baby is so special, we're going to give it a try. As you can see over the top of my bald head over there, the cloud cover is definitely increasing. I actually want to come and see here what this baby elephant was rolling in. He was rolling in nothing, he was just having some fun on the grass. I've actually lost sight of where this baby is. think he's in the bush off to our right-hand side. How bizarre is that? I've managed to lose a... Okay, right in front of us. I was just about to say, my ego was going to take a big bashing over there. I was about to lose a baby elephant in the open here. Let's go forward a little bit, see if this female will allow us into her presence. She doesn't seem too perturbed, and that is good for us. Yeah, that youngster is busy playing with another young elephant. Busy sharing a smell or sharing an experience or just touching one another. There you go. You can see over there that contact that's so important for elephant. Oh, look at that trunk over the back. Playing with his ear. No, what are you doing? Stop bullying. That's lovely. And then, of course, Colleen in Canada has asked a very awesome question. Do babies use their mouth or their trunk to suckle? Colleen, they use their mouth to suckle because their nose or their trunk has no epiglottis. So their nose or their trunk goes straight through to their lungs, and their mouth goes straight through to their esophagus and their tummy. They can't actually drink through their nose whatsoever. It's not a passage like we have. We can actually get water through our nose into our throat, and we have an epiglottis. Our baby tongue stops any when we swallow, our epiglottis blocks the trachea to stop food from going into our lungs, and when we're breathing, blocks our esophagus to stop air going into our tummies. Elephant don't have that. They just have one or another. Now these elephants have started to get moving again, and James seems to have kept up with these dwarf mongoose on walk, which is phenomenal. And before they run away again, you're going to go back to him. We'll see you in a bit.
Isn't that amazing? We've now come to within 6 meters of these little mongoose. 3 of them we can see. There's a 4th one to the right of your picture, and they are fascinated by us. Brian, of course, who spent lots of time in Kalahari with the meerkats, said, let's just go a bit closer. He reckoned that we could call them out of the burrow, and that's exactly what's happened. Isn't that amazing? Now, they have a Shangaan name, which is Matsigitso, and it's an onomatopoeic name for the call that they make. And we've been trying to emulate that call, and that's initially what sort of pulled them out of the burrow to have a look at us. Because when we walked up here, oh, look at that. Look at that. There, you heard it. That's us making a noise, obviously. And if you do that, sometimes they'll come a little bit closer. There we go. They are fascinated by us. Little pink noses, little red eyes. And they're just about to go off and forage. I'm sure they would go off and forage if they weren't looking at us so intently. They are fascinated by these large visitors that have come to their burrow. I'm always fascinated by how human their ears look. You can, at this distance, I mean at this astonishing distance of about 6 meters, you can almost see into their ears. And they're just so humanoid, very unlike a cat's ears or a dog's ears. And you can see when you look at their ears that they're so, well, I mean, they're related, but they're very distantly related. Totally different family from the dogs and the cats. And just loving the bits of sun there. Now they're diurnal animals, and that means that they probably don't see that well during the night, probably better than us. And Catherine, in Texas, you've asked an interesting question about whether their hearing or their sense of smell or sight are more important or more acute. I think it's difficult to say, but I would say that it's probably their sense of smell, and that's simply because in order to forage, when you're that tiny, you can't really see a great deal of what you're looking for. You need to be able to smell bits of rotting flesh and perhaps the scent trail left by some ants or termites, or even the urine trail left by a tiny rodent. So I'd say that their sense of smell is probably extremely acute. That said, their eyes are certainly excellent, as are their ears. I'd love to just experience what they hear for a brief while, just to understand how acute their hearing could possibly be. Well, this is really quite astonishingly special. We are standing so close to them. Now the mound, you can see there are a number of holes around the place, and the question is this, from Zumi Jodi, is this mound still active? I would say no, it isn't. Apparently you can see some kind of invertebrate running around behind where the mongoose have just disappeared. I'll just see if we can pull them out again. There they come. I don't think those are termites. They're probably flies and ants. There'll be all sorts running around here, but as in terms of a working, functioning termite colony, I think this one is done. There are trees growing out of it. It's actually, it's weathered down and eroded quite a lot. We're actually standing, where we're standing is pretty much on the edge of where the once very large termite mound used to be. So I think what you'll find, they've taken a little bit of a fright. I think what you'll find is that, there's one looking at look at them, isn't that wonderful? I think what you'll find is that this went dormant, probably as the result of an aardvark or ant bear attack, and you can see to the left-hand side of the mound there is a big hole, and I wonder if that isn't what precipitated the fall of this once mighty termite colony empire that used to cover a large area here. Very kindly built burrows and homes for many, many other little creatures. I'm going to take one step closer and just see if they won't become completely confiding with me. What I'm going to do, actually, Brian, if I sit down here, what do you think they'll do? You think they'll run to start? Let's just see, because this is astonishingly special stuff. Brian is now stuck on a tree. He can't move here. Let me move for you.
Okay.
You're off. Okay, they've all disappeared. What we'll do is we'll just step a little bit closer here. Now we'll make our call and see if there one's come out. We're now about 4 meters from that tiny little mongoose. That's gorgeous. This is absolutely unbelievable. They're looking around. They can hear bits and pieces in the grass around us. Oh, there's another mongoose there. Either another troop or perhaps an early foraging party. That's quite interesting. Can you see me, Brian? Just over there are another 3 or 4 mongoose. There, can you see them? And I'm sure they're from the same troop. There, running through the bush. Probably from the same troop, maybe an early foraging party, not a lazy bunch like this. The other thing that these ones might be are some youngsters or that have been left behind to look after the really little ones that are inside the mound. And they may be allowed to go out and forage later, or perhaps they'll even be fed by some of the others returning later on. Oh, that's just so spectacular. Now, mongoose, of course, always elicit questions about who and what they're related to. This is unbelievable. They're all coming out again now. And Anna-Marie and Barbara have asked questions about whether they're related to meerkats or prairie dogs. Prairie dogs, probably not really. I don't know the exact sort of taxonomy of a prairie dog, but I don't think that they'll be closely related at all. I'm not sure what family the prairie dogs come from. But then meerkats, absolutely, they're from the same family called the Hesperidae, and those are the mongooses, and a meerkat is a mongoose. It's just, it's just a different species of mongoose. Suricata in Latin. Thank you very much there, Brian. And these ones are, these have the wonderful Latin names, Mungos mungo, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Beautiful little Latin name. So they are in the same family, but not the same genus. Now what that means, if you're not into taxonomy, is that they are, for example, a leopard and a lion are in the same genus, both Panthera. One's Panthera pardus, that's a leopard, and one is Panthera leo, the lion. But a house cat, or say a serval, is in a different genus. They are Felis serval. So in the same way that if serval is related to a leopard, so would a mongoose or a dwarf mongoose be related to a meerkat. And I think you'd find that they are a lot more distantly related to a prairie dog. I don't know what family the prairie dogs come from. I suspect it's a family all on its own. Because you're in the New World there, and the continent split so many millions of years ago, you'll find that most of the mammal life is fairly unrelated. Let's just take a little bit step forward. Now, I was just saying perhaps these chaps here still in the mound, which is quite late for them to be here, perhaps they are here as guards for some really little ones. And Christy, you want to know if perhaps this is the breeding time. As far as I know, mongoose are pretty unseasonal breeders. They'll breed any time of the year. You'll probably find that there's a peak breeding season during the wet, and that's because of the amount of insects that they eat. So it's easier for them to feed the babies if there are lots of insects and reptiles around during the summer months. But I don't think that would preclude them giving birth in winter. So most of the carnivores out here are not really seasonal. They might show a peak birth time. There are some others calling from just behind us, giving that matsigito call. I'm just edging very slowly closer to this fellow and see what he does. Just sort of inch by inch by inch, and he's still watching it. This is amazing. And you don't have these experiences, of course, in a vehicle. There, he's gone out the back. Well, one of them's gone out the back. Still one there in the hole. There we go. Looking up at us now from the right-hand side there, Brian. Just see the eyes shining. Look. Now, you have had a great look at their eyes. They're very red eyes. And Lewis in Buffalo, you want to know about the pupils, and that it appears to you that they're elongate rather than round. Lewis, I have to admit that I'm not seeing what you're seeing because I'm not standing behind the camera. I'm standing in front of it trying to edge my way closer.
They look like goat eyes.
Do they? Which means, are they elongated pupils? Oh, I see. So they're horizontally elongated. I don't know why that would be, other than, much like for some of the cats, it's an effective way of allowing more light in during the darkness. And I think they're also probably quite an effective way of closing them up quickly if they have to during very bright light. But I think you'll find it's got to do with low light conditions. But more than that, I couldn't tell you at this stage. Brian, do you Have any ideas? But great. I mean, it's astonishing that you're able to see what the pupil looks like from here. We're now, I've edged another meter closer while we've been standing here. So we're standing about 2.5 to 3 meters from them. There is one just outside, just over there. Very relaxed. And I think if we sat here for long enough, I think you'd find most of the rest of the troop would come out. We'll do one more little alarm call, and then I think we'll leave them. I don't want them to sit here and not go and eat because they're worried about us. The one on the right is watching us, but the one inside's actually making little alarm calls, little contact matsigito calls. How very, very special indeed. What we'll do as we extract from this area is we'll walk around sort of at this distance and see if there are any the other side, and then we'll leave them to go off and forage for their breakfast. This, for me, is one of the most special experiences you can have in the wild, because it's slow. You've got to be considered about it, but when the reward you get from the patience is profound. To have spent this time with a completely wild animal less than 3 meters from it is just such a privilege. Yeah, they've all disappeared now. Now, of course, the most famous mongoose in history is Rikki Tikki Tavi from the Jungle Book. Now, Rikki Tikki Tavi was known as a snake killer. And Jane, you want to know if these mongoose are also snake killers. I will get back to you now. Sorry, and Dave and Jane, I missed your name there, Dave. Sorry, that's why I had to pause and just try and recall it by clicking furiously on my radio and getting Tara to tell me again. Dave and Jane, these mongoose, the dwarf mongoose, are not huge snake killers. They will kill small snakes, but they won't kill big ones. If you've seen mongoose attacking snakes in this part of the world, they are slender mongoose mainly. Now, a slender mongoose is a lot bigger. Slender mongoose is about 1 foot long, with a long tail, and they come in pairs or just solitary, and they will attack snakes, and they will fight cobras, and they're incredibly fast. A cobra is not a particularly quick snake. I mean, as a human being, you're actually fast enough. If a cobra sat up in front of you and tried to bite you, you could easily move your leg away fast enough. Well, not easily, but you could do it. Whereas if something like a puff adder were to strike at you, your reaction speed is nowhere near fast enough to get out of the way. But a cobra is not that quick, and the mongoose know that, and the mongoose are very quick. So they'll go in, they'll bite them, they'll get out, bite them again, and they will absolutely go for a cobra. Banded mongoose as well, which are slightly bigger, also live in big troops, and lovely bands across their backs. They will also kill snakes. So yes, there's a lot of snake killing. The dwarf mongoose is the one species that doesn't do a huge amount of snake killing because they're just very little. So they like to avoid being bitten by snakes. And snakes, I mean, cobras get pretty big out here. You'll get cobras of probably 4 feet long sometimes, and that's a formidable enemy for a tiny little mongoose like that. But for a slender mongoose, they'll absolutely have a go at them. Right, that was the most special little period. Beautiful. So we'll carry on walking through here, see what else we can spot. And there's clearly been a huge amount of aardvark or ant bear activity around here this isn't recent, this is very old. But we see a lot of it, and I think Steph showed you yesterday a pretty fresh aardvark hole. In fact, he probably climbed into it. And there were tracks of aardvark. We just don't see them because they're so nocturnal, and so we don't see a huge number of them. And as many of you will know, Tingana, who is one of our favorite leopards, of course, is a great connoisseur of aardvark flesh and hunting. And so when he's around, we definitely don't see them very much. But they're around. I mean, we've seen him, I think he's been pictured, what, with 3 of them, Brian?
Yeah.
It's 3 aardvark. So, I mean, there are lots of them around the place. I don't think those were the last 3. Just give you an idea here of the size of an elephant's back foot. Here is my foot. Now, that's not a particularly big foot, but it's a size 7. And the elephant's big foot, of course, goes all the way around where my stick is tracing. So enormous, enormous feet. Brian's foot was almost the same size as this elephant's foot, actually. Brian, will you put your foot in there? There we go. So the elephant is probably a size 15, a size 12 that you've got in there. A vast, great foot. It is no coincidence that Brian ended up in the circus for a little while with feet that size. What's your head? I also found, I've did this particular tree before on camera, and we found some green fruit a little while back, and today we found some purple ones, and we had another bite at them, but unfortunately this one doesn't have any. If we find some more, I'll show you. Bushman's grape, and you can see why they're called a grape. They're just starting to ripen, which is rather delicious. And we agreed that they tasted a little bit like a roast chicken dinner, if you can believe it. It's a bit of an odd thing for a fruit to taste like, but that is almost certainly what they did taste of. Sunday roast with a bit of a, well, it's kind of like having your chicken and your apple crumble mixed together. That's a bit like what the taste of that. It's quite sweet as well as tasting of roast chickens.
Chicken apple crumble.
Chicken apple crumble, delicious. Should try it sometime. What is this here? Now we're going to start finding lots of these kinds of things. This is a chrysalis, I think. There is something metamorphosizing in that little piece of gloop. It might be a caterpillar turning into a moth, something like that. It might be probably not a mantis, but something like that. Lots and lots of caterpillars and other kinds of larvae, the dung beetle larvae, fly larvae will be busy metamorphosizing, feeding, and then going into their pupas, metamorphosizing into their adult forms. And at night time we have a great dissension of all sorts of bugs and flying things that are attracted to the light, lots of moths. And then as the flowers come out, you'll see the butterflies flitting about here, and it's just a very wonderful time of year. Here's another Bushman's grape, and we'll see if we can find any fruits on it. I wonder if it isn't a... Here we go, here we go. Here we go, Brian. I'm going to refeed you roast chicken and apple crumble in one mouthful. Delicious. That's not a particularly red one. Here's a red one for me. So if you eat the purple bit there. Now these ones aren't particularly sweet. This is just roast chicken. This is without the apple crumble mixed in. Yeah, not quite ripe yet. Lovely when they're purple. They're really quite delicious. Bad luck. Now, just taking you back to the dung beetle sighting that we had earlier. If you weren't with us, we had an amazing sighting of a tiny little dung ball or dung rolling beetle. And Barbara, you want to know, do they only lay one egg in the ball? Yes, they do only lay one egg in the ball, but that's not the end of it. They will then go back and do the same thing again. So they keep repeating that process throughout the season. So one dung beetle will definitely normally have more than one offspring. And they don't survive the... Just careful, you're right there. They just don't survive the dry season. So as soon as it dries out, they will die, but they will have laid eggs all over the place. And some of them don't lay eggs in balls, of course. Some of them just lay eggs underneath the dung. They'll use the dung up, and then they'll fly off and find more dung. And there's obviously, as you've seen on these walks, a plethora of dung around the place. And especially, you know, when it heats up a bit and we've had a bit more rain, you'll find around that herd of elephants that you were watching with Steph, huge herd of elephants, what you'll find is that the swarms of dung beetles around there will be amazing, because the amount of dung that they produce, I mean, they produce hundreds of kilograms of dung every day, that big herd of elephants. They are some of the most fascinating creatures that we get out here. And we've talked about elephants, so let's head straight back across to Steve, who's got a few more elephants for you. We'll keep on in this.
I must say, I must comment on the fact that I am very, very jealous for you being where you are with, or where you were with James, at least, with those dwarf mongoose on foot. I'm sure he's told you many times already that it's absolutely unique to get there. But we've come to the front of this herd of elephant and found a big bull elephant that was hiding in the brush in front of this herd. And he's just given us a bit of a head shake, standing in this very thick bush. As you can see, we can literally just see the top of his head and his tusks. He's not the biggest elephant around. I would say that he's probably in his 20s, middle 20s. You can see he's also got a bit of a feeding notch on his tusk there. Andrew's trying to get into frame there. I just think watching an elephant where you can't see the whole thing is almost as exciting as watching an elephant where you can see the whole elephant. See, the wind is busy blowing. We're now right in front of this herd of elephant that we were with the whole time, the one with the female with a funny tusk and with the tiny youngster. I would say that this male elephant, this bull elephant that we're seeing, is part of this herd. I don't think that he is old enough just yet to be separated from the herd. I think that he was just walking in front. And he's busy eating some of the new shoots that are coming out underneath the trees. Now I see most of the elephants around have gone under trees or standing in the shade. Testimony that to the fact that the sun is quite harsh today. It's not a particularly hot day just yet, although I'm sure it is going to build up to be an absolute cracker. But already the elephant are moving into the shade. I'm going to get forward a little bit. Sorry, Andrew, I didn't mean to ambush you there. And just reposition slightly. A little baby coming with his head held high, obviously picking up on some of the emotion coming through these ellies. They're incredibly good at reading body language, these elephants, I must be honest with you. And here comes this youngster. Watching baby elephant is a good idea of gauging adult elephants' behavior. They exhibit similar things, like that head up, ears out is just an elephant's way of looking at us. Their eyes generally look to the ground the whole time at what they're busy feeding on. So for them to get a good view of something as big as us, they've got to lift their head up. And it has the double effect of being quite intimidating as well. Obviously not on a youngster like that, but when you see it on an adult elephant, absolutely. Now, as is the habit of elephant, once they have moved out of open open bush into thicker bush like we have at the moment, they have the almost mystic ability of being able to disappear. They become invisible. And although we are parked literally in the middle of about 20 or 25 elephants at the moment, I can only really see fully one elephant. And it's going to require me to reposition again. So while we reposition, we're going to be going through to James to show you what damage elephants actually do to the bush, so that you can actually see firsthand with James on foot what it is that these elephants are doing to the bush. So we'll catch up with you in a little bit.
Great sort of link from Steph. Here you can see a combretum tree that's been pushed out of the ground during the course of the winter months. They've left the bark completely alone, and what they were going for is the nutritious carbohydrates that come inside the roots of these combretum trees. Elephants love them, that's why they push them over, and astonishingly this tree will not die. It'll just change direction and grow up towards the sky. We've had a wonderful walk this morning. Thank you for your questions and comments. As always, they've sparked some lively discussion, even off air. We've talked about the various things that you've asked, so thank you for them. Big thank you to Brian on camera, a big thank you to Tara, of course, and to, well, we've got a newbie in town at the moment, and that is our new friend Geraldine. She's a lady, and she of course is here because today is the last day of Jessica Biffy in Johannesburg, so a big shout out to her. Goodbye, Jessica. We hope to see you soon. We are both we're both in a state of devastation that you're leaving. Bye-bye.
We are.
And stay safe wherever you are going in the world. I think it's Australia. Look after yourself. Don't eat too many kangaroo burgers, and we'll see you on the flip side. From us, Brian and James, we will see you, the rest of you, not Jessica of course, this afternoon at 4 o'clock. Back to Steph for the elephants. See you later.
Ciao.
Now, just talking about that mystic ability of elephant to disappear into the bush, as you can see this youngster hiding out in the shade. His trunk and his face almost look identical to that branch that you're busy having a look at over there. Almost the same pattern as well. We are sitting in the middle of this herd of elephants, and this is where we're going to be closing off the show today. It's been quite a bizarre day. Started off with an elephant and we're finishing off with an elephant, and it's been a beautiful day. It looks like it's going to be pretty cloudy this afternoon. With the wind, I doubt it's going to get to be a blistering day, but we'll be able to tell you more about what today is happening this afternoon on the Sunset Drive. And so literally I just want to say thank you to Jess once again. It's her last day on the show with us. She's moving on to greener pastures, or she's going to Australia for a bit, as far as I know. So we just want to say thank you to Jess for all her hard work over the last couple of months, and for really just being such a fantastic person, and we wish you well. James has had a fantastic sighting today, so I think between James and Brian and that dwarf mongoose sighting that they had, I mean, wow. And then we've just had a really good time with elephant today. I've really enjoyed today's, definitely with the elephant drinking out of the pan, and then with us sitting with this herd of elephant, different tusk shapes and babies and doing everything else. I've had fun today. So at least from my side, from Andrew's side, from Lou on the vehicle, we are going to say goodbye. Thank you to Tara and to Jerry. Well done, Jerry, on your first day in the seat. And we look forward to seeing you on the Sunset Drive. So have a good day wherever you are in the world. Ciao.